The applause broke out before I could finish my sentence. Congratulations to our new Regional Operations Director, Liam Delroy. For a second, I thought I'd misheard Marcus. My smile froze. My pulse spiked. Liam? The kid who started 3 months ago? The kid I'd been walking through vendor contracts like he was learning a foreign language? Around me, hands clapped, chairs shifted. I forced my palms together, each clap sharp and hollow. Marcus stood at the head of the table, grinning like a man who'd just changed history. His voice boomed against the glass walls. Liam brings fresh energy and vision. He's the future of Ironcrest. The future, my future, that's what he meant. The future I'd worked toward through 60-hour weeks, canceled weekends, and every late-night email that started with, "Quick favor, Sienna." Marcus wasn't finished. His eyes slid to me, and the smile sharpened. "Let's thank Sienna for preparing Liam for this moment." My throat tightened like a fist was closing inside it. 5 years of loyalty and perfect performance, reduced to a footnote, training material. The room erupted in another round of applause. I nodded once, my jaw aching from the effort to hold the expression in place. Smile, Sienna, look professional, swallow it down. That's when my phone buzzed on the polished table. A text from Caleb lit the screen. "Did you get it, Mom?" My chest clenched. I couldn't breathe. Across the table, Liam looked right at me and winked. Not a thank you, not even a trace of humility. A playful little flick of his eyelid, like we were co-conspirators in some private joke. Except the joke was me. The conference room smelled of burnt coffee and paper toner, but all I tasted was metal, bitter, cold, like blood in my mouth. I wanted to speak, to say something that would shatter the smug silence between Marcus's sentences, but my voice stayed locked somewhere deep in my chest. Instead, I clapped harder, louder, because that's what you do when the world tilts under your feet. You pretend nothing cracked. For now, the room emptied with the scrape of chairs and the hush of polite chatter. One by one, they filed out, handshakes for Liam, pats on the back. Congratulations murmured like hymns. I stayed in my seat, my fingers resting on the edge of the notepad I hadn't written a single word on. "Sienna, can you stick around for a moment?" Marcus's voice broke through the noise, smooth as polished steel. I nodded, even as the weight in my stomach sank like a stone. Liam slipped out with a grin that didn't belong to someone who'd earned anything. The door clicked shut. Silence. Marcus loosened his tie, leaning against the edge of the conference table like we were about to share a friendly drink. "It's nothing personal," he began, tone dripping with manufactured sympathy. "Liam represents the future, young blood, fresh ideas. You understand, right? The future." There it was again. That word, sharp as glass. I folded my hands in my lap, because if I didn't, he'd see them tremble. "You'll still run day-to-day operations," he continued. "No one knows the field like you. That's where your strength lies." My strength. As if that was a consolation prize for being gutted in public. Then he leaned in, lowering his voice. "Think about Caleb." My head snapped up. "Excuse me?" "Stability matters for kids," Marcus said softly, like he was offering fatherly advice instead of pressing the blade. "This job keeps things steady for you. For him, walking away, that would be a risk, wouldn't it?" The air thickened, heavy with the unspoken truth. He believed he owned me, that a 16-year-old boy was the leash around my neck. I swallowed hard, my throat raw. "Is that all?" Marcus smiled, the kind of smile that never reached the eyes. "Not quite." He straightened, smoothing his tie back into place. "Train Liam well, and I'll make sure your loyalty is rewarded. Later." Later. A word as empty as every promise before it. For a moment, I imagined what would happen if I laughed, loud, harsh, the kind of laugh that splinters the air. Instead, I said nothing. I just stared at the man who'd turned 5 years of trust into a transaction. "You're a professional, Sienna," he added. "I know you'll do the right thing." I stood slowly, the chair legs scraping against the polished floor. My heart was pounding so hard, I felt it in my fingertips, but my voice stayed even. "Sure, Marcus, the right thing." I walked out without looking back. My heels clicked against the hallway tiles like a ticking clock. Every step, the same thought burned hotter, louder. He thinks I'm trapped. The hallway blurred as I walked back to my office, Marcus's words echoing like a taunt. "Train him well, and your loyalty will be rewarded. Later." Later. That word sat like acid in my throat. I dropped into my chair, staring at the muted glow of my screen. Numbers filled the spreadsheet in neat, perfect columns. My world for the past 5 years. A world I'd built on a promise. "Your management material." Sienna. The first time Marcus said it. His voice was warm, almost paternal. It was March of 2018, in that same glass-walled conference room, sunlight pouring across the polished table. I remember the way hope swelled in my chest, how my fingers tightened around the leather portfolio I'd brought to the interview. "We reward loyalty here," he added. "Big growth ahead for the right people." I believed him. God help me. I believed every word. Back then, Caleb was barely 12, still leaving sticky notes on my laptop that said, "Love you, Mom." I told myself all the late nights were temporary, that the hours I poured into Ironcrest were an investment in both our futures. But those temporary nights stretched into years. I still see one in particular. The glow of the desk lamp at 11:30 p.m., the empty coffee mug leaving rings on quarterly reports. My phone buzzed. A photo from my sister, Caleb, grinning on stage in his band uniform, trumpet in hand. I'd promised him I'd be there for that concert. Instead, I was buried in Marcus's email titled "Urgent. Need numbers tonight." I typed until my wrists ached, whispering apologies into the empty room as if he could hear me. Another memory slammed into me, harder than the first. Caleb's 15th birthday. I was standing in a client's lobby 200 miles away when my phone buzzed again. A text from Marcus. Patience pays off. It landed just as my sister sent a video of Caleb blowing out candles without me there. The timing was perfect, like a cruel joke. And so, I stayed patient. I stayed late. I stayed loyal. I swallowed disappointment every time Marcus said, "Not yet, but soon." Stut now. Sitting here under the hum of fluorescent lights, I saw it all for what it was. 5 years of traded memories, burned weekends, and whispered excuses, all for a title that was never mine to claim. The bitterness curled cold in my chest, heavier than any spreadsheet, sharper than any deadline, for the first time in years. I wondered if the woman staring back from my darkened screen was someone Caleb could still admire. Because the truth was undeniable now. Every sacrifice I made was for a promise that never existed. The office was silent when I left my desk that night. The kind of silence that feels heavier than noise. It was past 10:45 p.m., long after the cleaning crew had finished and the overhead lights had dimmed to their nighttime glow. My shoes clicked softly against the polished floor as I walked toward the break room for a cup of stale coffee I didn't really want. That's when I heard it. Voices. Low and close, spilling into the empty hallway like smoke. "Marcus!" I froze just short of the glass corridor leading to his office. His door wasn't fully shut, and the acoustics in this building carried secrets too well. "She'll never cause trouble," Marcus said. His tone casual, almost amused. "Sienna's solid, reliable, but she needs the paycheck and Liam's family." The words landed like stones in my stomach. Another voice followed, deeper, older, probably Richard from corporate. "You're sure she won't push back? She's been here 5 years. Marcus!" Marcus laughed. a soft, dismissive sound that scraped like sandpaper against my skin. She won't. She can't afford to. Single mom, big bills, she'll stay in line. My nails dug crescents into my palms. Every syllable was another twist of the knife. Then came the part that stole the breath from my lungs. She'll train him better than anyone, Marcus added, with a confidence that made bile rise in my throat. Hell, she'll make him look good doing it. Something in me cracked then, not loudly, not with the kind of fury that shouts and slams doors, but with a quiet, clean snap that feels permanent. For 5 years, I'd carried this company like a second spine. I'd missed birthdays, skipped holidays, given every ounce of myself because I believed the lie that loyalty meant something. And here was Marcus, reducing me to a line item on his list of predictable outcomes. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds, the fluorescent hum loud in my ears, my pulse hammering so hard I could feel it in my teeth. My hands trembled, but my vision sharpened in a way that almost scared me. They think I'm broken, I whispered to the empty hallway. My reflection stared back at me in the glass, eyes bright and unblinking. They're wrong. I turned and walked away without making a sound, leaving Marcus to his laughter and his lies, with every step toward my desk. The anger settled, not as fire, but as steel, cold, deliberate, unbending, and in that moment, I knew something Marcus didn't. Nothing in this building would ever own me again. Rain tapped against the windshield like impatient fingers as I sat in the driver's seat, the glow from the dashboard clock reading 9:15 p.m. The parking lot was nearly empty, shadows stretching long under the streetlights. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles blanched. My phone buzzed in the console. Caleb. I hesitated before answering, forcing the tremor out of my voice. Hey, honey. Mom, are you okay? You didn't text after your meeting. His voice was soft, concerned, the voice of a boy who'd learned to read silence like a warning sign. I stared at the droplets racing down the glass, blurring the world outside. My throat burned. I'm fine, I lied. Did you get it? The question gutted me. For a heartbeat, I saw his face when I'd promised him things would be better soon. College tours, weekend trips we never took, and all the while, I was missing birthdays to answer Marcus's midnight emails. I swallowed hard, blinking back tears. I'll tell you everything tomorrow, okay? Get some sleep. Love you, Mom. I love you too. When the line went dead, I let the first tear fall, then another. The weight of 5 years pressed down until breathing felt like a choice. And then, just as suddenly, I stopped crying. I opened my laptop on the passenger seat, the glow of the screen cutting through the dark like a blade. My fingers moved without hesitation, typing the words that would sever everything. Dear Marcus, this is my formal notice of resignation. Effective immediately. I will honor a 2-week transition. I read it twice. No explanations, no apologies, just an exit wound, clean and final. By the time I slid the envelope across Marcus's desk, it was 4:30 p.m. on Friday. He'd just come back from parading Liam through the warehouse like a prized trophy. What is this? His voice sharpened as his eyes scanned the letter. Then his head jerked up, color flooding his face. You're walking away from everything, after all we've built? I said nothing. No company will hire a quitter. Sienna, you understand that? You're killing your career over pride. I held his gaze. Steady as ice. Maybe, but it'll be my choice, not yours. For the first time since I'd known him, Marcus didn't have a comeback. He just stared, searching for the fear he thought he owned. But it wasn't there anymore. I turned to leave, the echo of my heels on the polished floor sounding like a countdown, each step lighter than the last. Monday morning began with the vibration of my phone at 6 o'clock a.m. I'd been awake for an hour, sipping coffee in the stillness of my kitchen, when Liam's name flashed across the screen. "Sienna, thank God!" he blurted before I could speak. His voice cracked like a kid who'd lost his homework. Marbridge Steel is threatening to cancel their contract. Something about titanium brackets being delayed. They need confirmation by noon, or they'll pull out. Marbridge Steel, our biggest client. A $2 million account I'd managed for 4 years without a single hiccup. "Slow down," I said, my tone even. Soothing. "Open the supplier portal. Tell me which vendor's flagged." A pause. Then, "I don't know which vendor to check. There are like 6 contracts open, and..." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Marcus thinks I've got it under control." Of course he did. "I'll walk you through it," I said. "But listen carefully. You'll need these steps for next time." For the next 3 hours, I became a lifeline he didn't deserve but desperately needed. I explained backup suppliers, escalation protocols, and how to reroute shipments without breaching penalty clauses. My words were precise, my tone calm, even as I typed notes into a separate file, a living map of every process, every shortcut I'd mastered in 5 years. Not for Liam, for me, for the record. By 9:45 a.m., the crisis was contained. Marbridge got their brackets. Liam exhaled into the phone like a man reprieved from execution. "You're incredible, Sienna. I don't know how you keep this all in your head." "Experience," I almost said. Instead, I murmured, "Documentation helps." When I walked into the office later, Marcus was holding court near the glass wall, voice booming with fake confidence. "Team, everything's under control. Just a minor hiccup with Marbridge, but Liam handled it like a pro." His smile was wide, but his eyes, those betrayed him. They darted to me for half a second, sharp with suspicion, before snapping back to the room. I smiled politely, slipped past without a word, and sat at my desk to keep writing. Step-by-step guides, vendor hierarchies, troubleshooting flows, my entire playbook laid bare in black and white. Not because they asked for it, because I wanted it done on my terms. By Friday, the file was complete. I closed the document, exhaled slowly, and looked around the buzzing office. No one saw the storm gathering, least of all Marcus, still strutting on borrowed time. But I saw it, and when it broke, I'd already be gone. By the time Friday came, my resignation letter was no longer a weight in my bag. It was armor. I had 1 week left at Ironcrest, and every hour felt like the click of a countdown clock. That morning, I slid into a quiet booth at a downtown cafe, the air humming with low conversations and the hiss of steaming milk. Across from me sat David Langford, CEO of Brightline Industrial Solutions, a company I'd admired for years for its clean processes and forward-thinking culture. His handshake was firm, his smile sharp with curiosity. "5 years at Ironcrest," he said, scanning my resume on a sleek tablet. "Regional operations experience without the title. Impressive." "I've handled multi-million-dollar accounts across 4 states," I replied, steady but not pleading. "Marbridge Steel, Copperline Manufacturing, Border States Equipment. I know their systems, their pain points, and I know how to keep them happy." David leaned back, studying me like someone weighing not just a candidate, but a strategy. Then he smiled. "We're expanding aggressively into heavy machinery distribution. That's where your connections matter." He tapped the tablet once, then looked me dead in the eye. "We want you as Regional Operations Director. Salaries 35% higher than your current base, plus performance incentives." I exhaled slowly, my pulse thrumming in my ears. Director. The word landed like a lifeline, bright and solid after months of being treated like background noise. David wasn't finished. "There's one condition," he said. "Bring your relationships. We're good, but your network gives us an edge." It wasn't a request. It was an understanding. And it wasn't unethical. Clients choose who they trust. I nodded. They trust me because I deliver. That won't change. Good. His grin widened. Then he added, almost casually, word travels fast in this industry. I hear Marcus promoted family over competence. That true? The question hit like a spark in dry grass. I didn't flinch. It's true, David chuckled, shaking his head. Clients hate instability. You leaving? That's a signal. They'll follow the steady hand, the one that knows what she's doing. For the first time in weeks, I felt something bloom in my chest that wasn't anger or exhaustion. It was possibility. As we stood and shook hands, David said, we'll draft the offer by Monday, and Sienna, welcome to your next chapter. Outside, the late afternoon sun spilled gold across the street, warm against my face. For the first time in years, I didn't feel owned. I felt unstoppable. Marcus called me into his office on Tuesday afternoon. The tone in his voice wasn't a request. It was a summons. I walked in to find him standing behind his desk. Jaw tight, sleeves rolled up like a man preparing for a fight he thought he'd already won. The blinds were half closed, slicing the sunlight into harsh stripes across the room. Sit, he said. I didn't. He exhaled through his nose, then slid a sheet of paper toward me. Interviewing with competitors while you're still on my payroll? His voice was cold, every word deliberate. That's corporate espionage. Sienna. I met his stare, my hands resting lightly at my sides. It's called exploring options. Marcus's lips curled, his voice dropping into that condescending tone I knew too well. Options? You think Brightline will save you? You think you're irreplaceable? Face it. He stepped closer, his words landing like blows. Women like you hit a ceiling at 40. Liam's the future. The air in the room tightened, every molecule vibrating with heat. For a second, I felt the rage clawing up my spine, begging to spill out in flames. But instead of shouting, I smiled, just barely. Is that so? My voice was quiet, almost gentle, the kind of quiet that makes people lean in before the knife slips between their ribs. Marcus smirked, mistaking restraint for weakness. You're good at what you do, Sienna. I'll give you that. But you're done here, and if you think you can walk out with my clients— Your clients? I cut him off, voice like ice. Those relationships exist because I built them, not Ironcrest, not you. His face darkened. Don't play games with me. If you try to take them, I'll sue you into oblivion. That's when I leaned forward, slow and deliberate, and said the words that cracked the ground beneath him. Show me the non-compete I signed. Silence, thick and sudden, like the oxygen had been sucked out of the room. Marcus blinked, his mouth opening and closing without sound. I watched realization wash over him, hot, then cold, as the truth settled like a stone in his gut. I straightened, smoothing the cuff of my sleeve. Didn't think so. His jaw worked, teeth grinding, but nothing came out. I turned toward the door, my heels clicking like gunshots against the polished floor. Before stepping out, I looked back over my shoulder. You wanted loyalty, Marcus. You mistook it for fear. The blinds rattled as the door shut behind me, and for the first time, he understood the truth. I wasn't leaving quietly. Friday came quietly. No fireworks, no confetti, just the hum of fluorescent lights and the low buzz of keyboards. My last day at Ironcrest felt surreal, like watching a movie where the heroine walks out of a burning building without looking back. I arrived early, before most of the office, and packed my things in silence. A framed photo of Caleb, the ceramic mug he gave me for Mother's Day, the leather-bound notebook filled with years of strategies Marcus would never understand. Each item slid into the box with the weight of a closed chapter. By 8:50 a.m., the office was awake and bustling. Whispers trailed after me like perfume as I made my way through the rows of desks. People smiled too quickly, offered good luck wishes laced with curiosity and fear. They all knew what I knew. Ironcrest was cracking, and the sound carried. Marcus called me into his office one last time. He stood behind his desk, his smile stretched so tight it looked painful. "So?" he said, voice strained. "Last day." "That's right. You're making a mistake, Sienna." His eyes were glassy, hard with something between anger and desperation. "You think Brightline will make you a star? They'll chew you up like everyone else." I didn't answer. I just let the silence fill the room until it felt like a weight pressing on his chest. Then I smiled, a small, calm curve of my lips that said everything I didn't bother to speak. "Good luck, Marcus." The muscles in his jaw twitched as I turned and walked out without a backward glance. At my desk, I opened my laptop for the final time and typed a farewell email. Subject: Transition notes. Body: Team. "It's been a privilege working with you. Best of luck. Liam." They're in good hands. Sienna. I hit send, watching the words fly into the ether like a tiny, barbed arrow disguised as kindness. Closing the lid felt like exhaling after holding my breath for years. My badge clinked softly as I set it on the desk. The sound was final, like a gavel hitting wood. I lifted the box into my arms and walked toward the elevator. Each step felt lighter, as if the floor itself was rising to meet me. By the time the doors slid shut, Marcus hadn't appeared. Good. I didn't want a scene. This wasn't about drama anymore. It was about peace, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing the storm was coming. My phone buzzed just as the elevator reached the ground floor. A new email. From Janet Morrison, procurement head at Marbridge Steel. Subject line: Ironcrest transition. The first sentence made my pulse spike. If Liam's in charge, we pull out. I stared at the screen, the corners of my mouth curling into something sharp. That single sentence was more explosive than anything I could have planned, because I didn't need revenge. I just needed to leave the match on the table, and Marcus had built the house out of paper. As I stepped into the sunlight, the weight slid off my shoulders completely. The air smelled like rain and freedom. For the first time in years, I wasn't chained to someone else's vision. I was walking into my own. And Ironcrest? They were walking into chaos. 6 months later, I sat in my office on the 22nd floor of Brightline's new regional headquarters. The city skyline shimmered in the late afternoon sun. Glass towers catching fire in the light. My calendar pinged. Reminder for the quarterly strategy call. I closed it, for once. There was no rush. The business magazine lay open on my desk, its glossy cover screaming headlines in bold type. Ironcrest loses 60% of revenue amid nepotism scandal. CEO ousted. I skimmed the first paragraph again, savoring the words like a slow sip of wine. Marcus Delroy, terminated. Liam Delroy, resigned after 3 months and returned to grad school at Arizona State. The board had launched an internal review after multiple clients walked out. Citing leadership instability, the article mentioned lawsuits, penalties, and something about a $2 million breach of contract claim from Marbridge Steel. And just like that, the empire Marcus thought he owned had crumbled under the weight of his own arrogance. I traced the edge of the page with my fingertip, not out of spite, but out of quiet validation. There was no gloating, no fireworks inside me, just the calm certainty that everything had unfolded the only way it could. My phone buzzed with a text from Caleb. "Dinner tonight? Your pick." I smiled. He'd grown taller, his voice deeper, but he still cared about Friday night dinners. And now, for the first time in years, I never had to answer him with maybe next time. I closed the magazine, slipped it into the drawer, and grabbed my coat. The coffee shop on 4th and Main was quiet when I walked in, the kind of place that smelled like roasted beans and rain. And there, at a corner table, sat Liam. He looked different, older somehow, though still carrying that earnestness that had made me pity him more than hate him. A thick textbook lay open in front of him. Supply Chain Management. "Sienna," he said, standing when he saw me. "Thanks for coming." I sat across from him, the hum of the espresso machine filling the pauses. "I wanted to thank you," Liam said finally, his voice steady but soft, "for how you handled everything. You could have left me to fail, and honestly, I did fail, but you tried to help. You didn't have to." I tilted my head, offering a small smile. "You were thrown into something you weren't ready for. That wasn't your fault." His eyes met mine, clear and direct. "You deserved it, not me." For a long moment, we sat in silence, the truth hanging between us like a shared confession. Then I stood, sliding a 5 across the table for his coffee. "You'll be fine, Liam," I said. "This time, you're learning the right way." Outside, the air was cool and clean. I walked back toward my car, the city alive with possibility. Brightline's numbers were climbing fast, our market share stretching across 3 new states. My name was on the masthead now, bold and permanent. Regional Operations Director, Sienna Cole. And tonight, I'd have dinner with my son without a laptop between us. Sometimes the loudest revenge isn't slamming doors or burning bridges. Sometimes, it's silence and success. I walked away from the people who underestimated me and built something stronger on my own terms. That's the real lesson here. Your value isn't defined by someone else's ceiling. It's defined by what you choose to do when they think you're trapped. Sometimes, the quietest moves speak the loudest. Success doesn't always roar. It whispers when you're willing to bet on yourself. Now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever faced a moment where you had to choose between staying silent or standing up for your worth? Share your story in the comments. I read every single one. If this story hit home, tap that like button and share it with someone who needs the reminder. And if you're new here, subscribe for more real stories about resilience, strategy, and taking your power back. Your support keeps this channel growing.